think you're on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Schreiner with Liongard. Thank you so much for being here today. Matt here is our VP of Product. Super awesome guy. Really, really smart, and also used to co-run an MSP.
Correct.
Liongard, we're very, very proud of our MSP DNA. I worked at an MSP. Our co-founder, Joe, worked at an MSP. So we take a lot of pride in that and trying to make something that really helps you solve problems. All right, here you go.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. All right. Thank you, Cynthia. I told Cynthia that all I needed from the intro was to transfer all of her energy and social credibility with this group to me. So hopefully that worked. Anyway, I am Matt Miller, as Cynthia said. I'm the VP of Product at Liongard. Before Liongard, I spent about 11 years with an MSP in Austin, Texas. I started on the help desk. I went through engineering, and then I ran the engineering team, and then I ran the sales, business development, account management team. So I did a lot of things at our MSP, kind of did all of the jobs, and learned quite a lot about the industry and the process. And then I spent the last 4 years with Liongard, really working to solve some of the problems that I lived at my MSP. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. So let me get into this a little bit here. We are here to talk about sales and marketing. This might be somewhat remedial, but it's a good foundation, right? If we're going to talk about sales and marketing, we should talk about, there are really three key ways to grow, I would argue, any business, but your managed services business for sure. You can acquire new customers, find new business, prospect, acquire new customers. You can grow existing relationships, so we can acquire more wallet share, offer new services, do all the things that we do during our VCIO process to grow those relationships, or we can increase retention. Because if we're trying to go up, getting on the up escalator, not the down escalator, usually helps. So that's it. So that sort of is the foundation. Those are big, those are huge, big, huge topics. So there's not going to be any one tool, one company that's going to fix all that for you. Don't obviously believe anyone who says that that's a possibility. But I'm going to talk to you about how I think we, or at least a thought process you can put into place to help drive some of these things in a modern in a modern way, as a modern MSP. So what I am going to argue today is that gathering the data that you need is half the battle. And for the slice of the audience that just went, oh my God, he said data. He used the D word. I wish I was still at home on Zoom so I could click leave and get out of here. Trust me, just bear with me for a little while. Gathering data is half the battle to these things. And so the one thing that we're dealing with here is that all these things are based on a data problem. We need to gather the data about how our prospects' systems are configured, what problems they may have, where we may be able to do better for them. We need to do the same thing for our existing clients. We need to do the same thing when we go into that quarterly business review. And the thing I'm going to lay out today is that right now I think most MSPs do this in a way that is manual, that's not very scalable, that's not very efficient. So we want to lay out a process that is those three things, that's repeatable, scalable, and universal, because getting to that solid data and being able to tell a compelling, accurate story about how you can do better for your customers is how you win business. It's how you prove that you know your stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about as we move forward here. I know that a lot of folks will come at you and say, hey, you need to be data-driven. That's a totally generic, almost useless statement a lot of the time. You need to be more data-driven. We're going to try to make that a little bit more actionable today and talk about how you can really become more data-driven as an MSP and use that thought process to actually drive business, to actually grow your business. So let's just start at the top of the funnel. You're talking to prospects, or maybe you're doing outbound prospecting. You want to stand out from the competition. Let's just assume that you're working in a competitive market where you're not the only MSP in town. That was certainly my life when I was working in Austin. Dozens, if not hundreds of MSPs. So how do we want to stand out from the competition? Well, we want to ideally have some data about who we're talking to. We want to identify what problems might they have. We want to be able to start a meaningful conversation. And just a really practical thing that we do, we recommend our partners do, and a lot of them do this to drive business, is We have some things that we call inspectors. They bring back data about systems. Some of them you can run without ever even speaking to the customer. You can go, okay, let's inspect their internet domain presence. Let's inspect their SSL certificates. Let's put some of their email addresses of their key employees into a breach monitoring inspector. Let's see what that data tells us. Are their domain names registered with somebody who we would trust? They probably are. Are they about to expire? Okay, let's go to the SSL certificates. Are they set up in a good way from a technical perspective? Do they have all the latest and greatest things? Are they subject to any of the many security issues that some SSL certificates have if they're past a certain age? Okay, well, let's get that on the table. These are kind of the opening salvos, but they at least can start the conversation. And sometimes getting that conversation started is what it's all about. So let's move kind of down our sales funnel. So from that initial conversation, that initial data gathering, I lived this life a lot, and I'm curious if this resonates with anyone else. So if you've ever been in the sales or sales engineering role at an MSP, some of you probably are right now, have you ever gone out into the field and spent a good day's work, right? Okay, we're going out into the field, we've got one or more prospects, maybe 2 or 3 on a good day. We're gonna go and look at all their systems, we're gonna take pictures, we're gonna take notes. How good are the notes you took today, is sort of my question. As you go through that process, and we were okay at it, right? We had we had a form, here's all the standard information we want to gather. We weren't bad at our jobs. We still took an awful lot of notes, an awful lot of pictures, did an awful lot of manual work to gather that data. And when I would get home at night, more often than not, I would sit down feeling accomplished, right, for the day. I did a good day's work, but now it's time for me to decode my own notes. It's time for me to actually write that quote, actually write that proposal. That's quite a lot of work. But the worst part of that isn't so much that you had to do the manual work. It's that I bet in a lot of cases, let's just fast forward a little bit. You close that business. They sign on the dotted line. You get your deal. That's great. You're then handing it off more than likely to an implementation team, right? Who's going to actually have to go and do that work, get that customer set up. How much of that decoding of your notes are they even going to be able to do, or are they going to have to go do? How much of that work are they going to redo in some cases? This is part of what I'm laying out when I talk about this being a real data problem. When we gather data about an entity, we're gathering it automatically, we're gathering it in a repeatable way, and we're getting it right into the line of business systems that we use so that we don't ever have to do that work again. That's the key here. Repeatable, scalable, universal process. Anything less is just note-taking. So now post-onboarding. It's time for our regular business review. Maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's annual, whatever the case may be. This is how you grow relationships. This is the second leg of that stool of how you grow your business. This is where the magic really happens if you're actually executing. The way you grow relationships is not by doing quick ticket resolution times. You have to do that, but that's not really how you grow the relationship. The way you grow the relationship is by having conversations like this. So do we have all the information that we need to really understand at a deep level what needs to be upgraded, what additional services, what additional opportunities might be on the table? You have to have a strategic conversation with them that covers all of those things and more. And you're much better served if you're not spending your time gathering data from a lot of different places. Oh, well, where are all these pieces of data that I need to know about the warranties and about, where is the domain and SSL certificate registered? Who's the Microsoft reseller? How do we making sure all those dots are put together? That should all be in one place. That should be a one-click report. And then you can actually use your brain power, use your staff on having those strategic conversations. So when I get to talking about this is a data problem, this is what I really want to leave you with from this perspective. And then we're going to hear from a couple of our partners, one of whom is here with us live. I have a short video to show you in a few minutes. But solving the data problem, this is the key, from my perspective, to making your MSP into a real data-driven operation where you are not having to do manual repetitive work. creating a repeatable, scalable, universal way to gather data about your prospects and clients. You're gathering deep data. Deep data, and I'll show you some examples of that in just a second. You're getting that data directly into your system of record and making it available to your whole team. We don't want this data to land in someone's notepad and have to be regathered later. We don't want this information about your clients to have to be manually and repetitively kind of redone on a periodic basis. Let's do it once, and then let's leverage automation. 10x your outcomes by gathering that deep data, having it updated automatically, and driving real outcomes from it. Being able to run a report about that customer that tells you everything you need to know going into that QBR conversation. Always operating in a known state. Being able to see, okay, if we are gathering data about this customer, we're refreshing our data set about this customer every single day. How are their systems configured? We know that every day. We can start to do things like track changes and always be operating in a known state where we know if we're starting to drift. So finally, that change detection, and then keeping a historical record of all those system configurations is also extremely powerful for things like auditability, security, when you need to be able to go back in time and see what changed when, and what was the evolution of potentially this problem or this outage. Having that record of all of that data serves you there too. So there's a broad set of things we can do here, and to make this a little bit more real, this is just an example in our platform of what deep data looks like from, for example, a SonicWall firewall. So you're going to see a lot of things here. So we've pulled a full system configuration of this system. Our aim is to really duplicate that configuration and be able to give your entire team the ability to dig deep on how is this system configured. You'll see across the top that timeline there. We can click back in time to any point in time. See, what was the exact state of this firewall 3 months ago, 6 months ago? When was port 3389 opened? Man, we really wish we knew how that happened and when. Being able to rewind time like that, this is the type of data, of deep insight that's available when you automate these things. And if you see the list of tabs across the top there, this is depth. Interfaces, NAT policies, address groups. I'm going a little bit into the technical weeds there. But we're not talking about a lightweight set of fields. We're not talking about a handful of things that might be useful to know. This is how the system is set up. A key part of what Liongard does is we don't just do that for a single system or even a single type of system. We go from the cloud to the endpoint, everything in between. So being able to have unified visibility. If you talk to us long enough, you'll hear unified visibility a lot. That is what we do. We unify visibility into all these things. So this is an example from Microsoft 365. Again, depth and time. Extremely deep data. How is every user configured? Mailboxes to secure score to domain. Every bit of it on the timeline. And if I go back one, you'll see those little orange delta icons there. Those are the change detections. You're able to highlight key pieces of the configuration, set of administrative users, for example. If that ever changes, tell me. Don't just tell me, give me a ticket too. We'll send you a ticket to your PSA for that. So going beyond just data for things like driving revenue and driving QBRs, but also driving that retention. If we can catch these issues and resolve them faster, we can retain customers more effectively. We're covering all three legs of that stool that we talked about at the beginning. So Microsoft 365, and then going all the way down to the endpoint. So inspecting down to each individual Windows system that you maintain. Our Mac OS inspector is coming out later this year, bringing parity to Windows and Mac. How is the system configured? What do we need to know about this thing? Let's put it in exactly the same place, in just the same format as everything else that we use. Because we don't want to be able to report on just part of what we do. Our customers expect us to come with a full story, right? Everything you maintain. And that increasingly is a huge set of cloud services. On-prem applications, on-prem servers, cloud applications, endpoints. As MSPs, we're expected to handle all of it. Your tool stack needs to support visibility into all of it as well. And then we give you the ability to build reports. So if we don't want to just I mean, it's great that I can go in here and look at how Microsoft 365 is set up. If I'm trying to dig for a problem, that's where I go. I'm going to rewind time to where I think the problem was and see what changed. But if I'm getting ready for a QBR, I want to build a report that goes from AD to the firewall, to the network stack, to the backups. I want to get that all in one place and be able to support that full story without having to assign a task to somebody. Hey, today, you expensive employee, I need you to go off and gather all the data that I need for this QBR. It's not a good use of time. We should stop doing that as an industry. And then what some of our very advanced partners are doing, and we are working to support them in this and have some very exciting things coming out in the coming months, is better reports. And this is what some folks are doing with Power BI. So we also have a full and open API to get at all this data. And if you're a Power BI wizard, or if you have a very sophisticated and mature thought process for how you do your QBRs, do your periodic business reviews, getting at that data and being able to provide that value is wide open. So I'm going to take a beat now. I'm going to grab a quick drink of water. I'm going to play this video for y'all, if I can get this to work. This is one of our customers, one of our partners, I should say, actually talking to some of these things.
We used to have a pretty baked out process when we'd sign a new customer to send a resource on site for a series of visits to manually collect the data inside that new customer. Using Liongard, it has helped us automate that. So installing that probe and collecting that data. Now we just take a resource to take that data and line it up to our documentation platform, which will then tell us just what are we missing. So it has helped our onboarding process, immensely. The solution of Liongard will help us faster understand what's going on inside that new customer, right? So we can then come back to them with a 5-year, our whole goal is to build a 5-year roadmap, educate our clients on where their exposures are inside their own network or infrastructure. So Liongard will pull that data and put it right at our fingertips. And our stack, it's a critical component because our first impression with the client when we onboard them is, if you don't identify something correct and you're 6 months down the road, you could potentially lose that client. If we didn't have the solution in our stack right now, we would probably have 8 full-time onboarding resources, right? In today's labor market, it is extremely hard to find and retain resources. In order for us to grow, and take on 8 new customers in a month, we can do that with 2 onboarders using Liongard as our partner and the strengths that they bring as far as the automation piece of the onboarding. So by using the tool, it takes the human element out of the data collection, the probe piece, and makes us a better company. We've introduced Liongard, and the overwhelming response from the techs and the resources at the acquired MSP has been, oh my God, why weren't we using this before? Because they were manually doing that process. So finding the tools and the partners to help as you grow is essential, right? So you have to check a lot of boxes, right? They have to be able to understand how you tick. They have to have, check all the security boxes so you don't have any exposures as you introduce a tool into your network. They have to be being able to grow with scale, right? So we've doubled the company in 1 year. We'll double again next year. We are constantly looking at our partners to make sure they can scale with us. And Liongard has checked all those boxes.
All right. So Kevin wasn't able to be. There we go. Wasn't able to be with us today, but I'm very happy to have him on video. Derek, would you take the mic for a second? So we do have one of our partners here in person, Derek, who's going to, I think, has some passionate views about doing QBRs he wants to share with us. You come on up.
Hi, everybody. There's way more people in this room than I thought there was going to be. My name is Derek Gabriel. I'm the CEO of Ignite Solutions Group in Honolulu, Hawaii. We're an MSP. Started the company in 2014, and we've been a Liongard partner for a few years now. And they asked me when they said they were going to have this conversation. They said, do you have some things that you want to talk about around the review process? And I'm super curious. I feel like the nice thing about Robin Robbins is that a lot of the folks here are a little more operationally mature than the average. But I'm super curious, of all of you that are out here, how many of you do review process with your customers? God, I should have been 100%. So those of you that don't, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little controversial, but I believe that what separates the people who say they're an MSP and the real MSPs is the business review process, right? Whether it's quarterly, annual, semi-annual, however you want to do it, but business review is so important because it's the opportunity for you to help you budget with your customers and give them, you know, that big knowledge that's different from the people that are just tweaking the nerd knobs. And what's super cool about Liongard, and when you were doing the slides, my favorite one is the one with the windows, because I was like, hey, does anyone else see the cache on the screen? Because you're looking at that data, and the thing that they didn't touch on was the metrics, right? So the agents and the collectors go out and get the data, and they bring that in. And if you don't like the way that they're presenting the data for you, and you need some specific details, there's flexibility in there, right? Like most vendor tools, you kind of get this package, and you have to kind of do it that way. The flexibility of Liongard to create custom metrics that can drive custom reporting is really phenomenal. So we use that to basically automate a lot of the review process, right? So our company, we use True Methods as sort of one of our operating methodologies. And that gives us a really great opportunity. A lot of what was in the video too, I'm just kind of up here being like, yep, what they said. But, you know, we're having these conversations with our customers where we're like, hey, you know, here's how you can automate your company. Here's how you can make your company better. And then internally we're like, hey, wait a minute, we should do some of these things as well. And so, you know, inflation and cost of labor, and we're always like, oh, we need more technicians. Well, not necessarily. You need technicians to do the things that technicians do, but when we're moving this data around for these reports, Liongard is awesome. So it's kind of all I got to say.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. Okay, so I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts here, and then we can take some Q&A. We have a couple of minutes left. I think what I really want to leave everyone with is, as an industry, I think we think about these boxes as at least somewhat different things, right? It's like this stepwise process of we do prospecting, and then we do that, we do that, we do that. What I think we should pivot to is thinking first about how do we get the information that we need to do good versions of all of these things. Let's maximize how we automate that. Let's get all of that information together in one place, have it always be up to date, always be able to rely on it, make it available to everybody in our organizations, because that just crushes out so much crap from the process. We do things once, we don't worry too much about the manual work that we have to do because we're relying on automation. We can deliver better outcomes to our customers by doing things like more effectively monitoring for change, making sure we're operating in a good state that we're happy with from a security perspective, et cetera. Flip it around. Focus on the data. How do we get good, solid information that we can all rely on and use it to drive those outcomes? But get the operational advantage that comes with starting from the data. So that's really all I've got. Please swing by the booth and talk to us some more. There are a lot of ways you can take what we talk about to make your business better. We would love to talk to you about it one-on-one. We would love to set you up with a demo of the platform to show you a lot more than just the screenshots that we had up here. And then it looks like there's a party tomorrow night, Cynthia? Yeah. So scan that QR code if you haven't already to register for that. You're all invited. Thank you for coming. And I'm up for some Q&A. We got about 5 minutes. Go ahead, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so we are focused on gathering the data from the systems and then letting you use that to take the outcome all the way from a QBR perspective. So if you've got, for example, the example that you said was like backup retention period. So if you have a particular retention period that sort of is your standard, we have a construct in our platform that we call an actionable alert. And you can go in there and basically set a rule where it's like, okay, this data point from our Veeam inspector or whatever, from whatever backup tool we're using, retention period, if it is not equal to, less than, whatever, X number of days, then give me a ticket or let me know about it. So that's how we express preferences or standards like that. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Yep, so we do connect, we integrate to Datto PSA, ConnectWise, IT Glue to push flexible assets. We're launching Halo. We have Synchro, quite a number. That might not even be all of them. But yeah, we do integrate to a number of PSAs. And the main thing that we do there is to drive those tickets from those alerts. Sorry, the lights are literally blinding. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Technician onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Getting them, a lot of the material is somewhat self-evident, but for somebody that's new, like a level 1 tech,
Yep.
do you have training that walks them through how to use the tool, troubleshooting those types of things?
Yeah, so we have a Liongard Academy. So we actually have a way you can get your people certified in using Liongard. So that's the most kind of straightforward, easy way. I do think that a lot of the kind of basic screens are pretty self-explanatory, right? It's like overview, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the huge things about what we do from a new technician perspective, especially like a level 1 technician perspective, is you can enable your kind of talented, high potential people to go and figure out what might be wrong, right, in a particular case, without them necessarily having to have the admin password to literally everything, right? They get a lot of visibility without the ability to change anything. And that's pretty good for level 1 techs. They can go and, if they can figure out how to solve a problem and come to you with the answer as opposed to the question, that's a huge efficiency gain. But they also stop tapping your level 3 engineers on the shoulder. Hey, can you? Hey, can you? Hey, can you? Well, the information is there if you're motivated to go find it and figure out what's going on here. Did that answer your question before I move on? Okay. Yeah.
Doing like a pre-sales assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Do I talk to the prospect and say, I'm going to use Liongard to help run this assessment, or am I using a third-party tool within Liongard?
Yeah, so you would actually be using Liongard. So our inspectors, since we inspect such a breadth of things, right, cloud on down, the level, some things we can just do, you can do sort of without their permission, because it's just public source information, right? If it's like I'm inspecting internet domain, DNS registrar, all that stuff, TLS certs, all those things I said on one of the first slides, that you can just do. But yeah, when you get to the point of, hey, we're going to install one or more Liongard agents inside of your environment, that is how the product works. So that would be the next step, yeah. But the sort of, it's central to the point, but just it's a good prompt. A key thing there is that you can position it to the prospect or the new customer as a sales assessment, but it's really getting that data into your core platform. It's getting it into Liongard, and then from there on to ConnectWise or IT Glue or wherever it may live, and that's just done. There's no follow-on step from that. If they onboard, if they become a recurring customer, all that data is just where it needs to be for the end game right from the start, which is the state you want to be in. BrightGauge, we do have a BrightGauge integration. Yeah, so the metrics that Derek mentioned, that you can go and basically write queries into our data, and we have a ton of them built into the platform, so you don't necessarily have to write them. Those do integrate out to BrightGauge, yeah. They actually built that integration. IT Boost, no, we do not have an integration with IT Boost. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Are there any other components that you capture aside from networking or endpoint devices? So, for instance, specific devices like network-connected X-ray machine?
Okay. So we have not gone to the extent of doing sort of those, what I would think of as very bespoke things, right? Like getting into verticals like medical devices, physical security devices. We have not gone there yet. We do go beyond just the few things that I showed. We do inspect, our mission right now is to inspect the entire kind of IT MSP stack. And I'd say we have a solid like 80% of coverage on that. We're building more inspectors every day. I do anticipate that we will open up and allow data to flow into the platform in the future from any potential source. So enabling people to write their own inspectors, enabling an ecosystem of inspector builders, that's in our future, I would say. I'm getting the playoff music, so I think I need to cut it there. Thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate your time. I hope it was informative.